Hello, this is Gideon Emery, a.k.a. Balthier from Final Fantasy XII, telling you you're listening to the Raw Dogs podcast. And from this leading man, may you be the leading man in your own lives. Tune in, enjoy, farewell.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Hair of the Mogcast. This is Raw Mogs. I wanted to do that since I thought of it back when we had a Final Fantasy month, but this is Raw Dogs, your favorite podcast about blitzball and laughing and cringing and likable, questionable racist characters with weird hair. Lots to take in.
Fair.
We are part of the Tokyo Beat Podcast Network. Check out all of those other amazing shows. And my name is Brad. Who else is here with us today?
My name is Titus, because that's what I typed in at the beginning of the game.
Titus, actually.
I'm going to say Titus because I've been saying Titus for 15 years.
So I like to
Titus.
hear. I'm going to say Titus because that's right.
Thank you.
And then, they're going to do like a remake, and they're going to actually say it's going to be, oh, no, it's Kate Sith actually the whole time. It is Kate Sith.
Oh, my God. They are going to have to name it all of a sudden. Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, they actually changed it from the Ketchi to Kate Sith for the rebirth. It's like officially Kate Sith now instead. So all of my trivia for the past 10 years is gone.
There's a moment of vindication for me. Like as speedrunning FF7, I would always just say Kate Sith because that's what I said when I was a kid. And every time, every run, without fail, there's always at least one new person to the chat who's like hang on, let me push my glasses up. Well, actually.
Whose beautiful voice is that?
All right, so I'm Muttski. I'm a Final Fantasy streamer and speedrunner. It's my favorite series, and a lot of my favorite games are in this series. So yeah, I game and play RPGs. And,
yeah, Muttski, tell us a little bit about your Final Fantasy, your experience, like your streaming.
So we are quickly approaching my 10-year anniversaries of streaming Final Fantasy games. Yeah, I started my first ever Final Fantasy stream speedrunning Final Fantasy IX in January of 2014. And I just kind of picked it up as a hobby when I moved really far from where I grew up. I'm from Pittsburgh-ish, and then I moved to Houston for work. And I had like no friends or family here. Kind of found my way to the speedrunning community when I was just like looking for things to fill the void of my free time. And then I met a bunch of cool people online doing that. So I just kind of kept doing it. And since I've speedrun, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8 different Final Fantasy games among a bunch of other series. And so yeah, I've just been doing that for a long time. I've made a lot of cool friends doing that, so I keep doing it. It's definitely like a hobby, not something that I would ever want to do like full time, but it is something that I've invested like thousands and thousands of hours into over the last 10 years.
It's kind of an unfair advantage having speedrunners as guests, because I've beaten the game 5 times, and y'all have probably like, oh, yeah, just like 20, 30 times, maybe.
Just last weekend, it's pretty whatever.
It's kind of a slow weekend.
Well, it's funny, whenever I got your email asking me if I'd be interested in doing it, I just wrapped up last night. I had just finished playing Final Fantasy X, like, casually for the first time in, like, I don't know, 20 years almost, probably. The last time I probably played it was when I was in college. And so I was literally finishing up a Final Fantasy X casual. And so at least the story and everything that I usually don't pay attention to at all is kind of fresh. And there were a lot of things that I never did in the game that a lot of people introduced me to that I just never really got into when I was younger. So that I obviously don't do. You don't really explore for the side content when you're speedrunning the game typically. So there were a lot of things that I just never done before.
You just don't worry about those lightning bolts when you speedrun. You run through there.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
You don't care if the Besaid Oryx lose the game.
The newest route, it's very bad if you don't win.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, is that strength sphere like super important?
Yeah, it's like a deal breaker now. It used to not really matter. It used to just be like a little bump, but now it's kind of a big deal, yeah.
It's a big old bump now. It's a bump the reset button. Oh, no.
And returning to Raw Dogs once again, after the triumphant and glorious Final Fantasy IX episodes, we are joined once again by Spike Vegeta. Spike, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. The way you all will know me is as the person who is excited that Muttski gets to join us. I recommended Muttski be on this episode because Muttski is one of my favorite people on Twitch, unironically. I remember running into Muttski ESA 2016. I'm pretty sure you were outside with a bunch of friends drinking, and I was like, holy shit, is that Muttski? And you were like, what? Spike Vegeta, sure. Like, I've been around speedrunning for a while. I was like a classic Muttski lurker for like Link to the Past streams and all the PlayStation Final Fantasies. Like, he kind of glossed over all the Final, I speedrun Final Fantasy. This FF7, FF8, FF9, FF10. I forget if you've actually dabbled in 13 or not. Tons of Final Fantasy games, and all of those 7, 8, 9, 10 hours long. By the way, here's a fun little fact I always like to bring up. It's a little different now with the HD remakes and all the different ways to play it. But there was a time where Final Fantasy VII speedrun was 7 hours. Final Fantasy VIII speedrun was 8 hours. Final Fantasy IX speedrun was 9 hours. And Final Fantasy X speedrun was 10 hours. So there's your fun fact of the day. Nothing else we're going to talk about on this podcast is going to be a fun fact.
It's all about the symmetry, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, how they're just going to keep slapping another hour on there. And then FF13 was like, what if we sped it up? It'd be great.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to bring it up at some point. I didn't know what the springboard into it was, but Spike and I have obviously met up and hung out at enumerated events at this point. But we met in Europe at a speedrunning event in Sweden, which is just kind of the exception, not the rule, obviously being
Yes.
both in the States. So yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
But yeah, we're both Final Fantasies are cool. I just played through Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy VI just this year. I was like, you know what? I consider myself a Final Fantasy fan, and I played 4 of these damn things. So I've been consuming them casually. I played FF10, which is the game we're about to be talking about for the next few hours, just last year, and man, I'm probably going to forget a million of the story beats, but I loved that game casually. It might be the first one that actually passed FF9 for me on my casual Final Fantasy scale of I thought the game was fantastically done. The music, the story, the party members, the boss fights, just the themes of the story and everything. So well done. So spoilers, I'm excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing our FF9 episode, you were mentioning you're playing through 10 and you were just high on it. You were flying. I played this back on the PlayStation 2. I was, a big PS1 Final Fantasy person. So I, fell in love with it. I completed it back then when it came out. And I played through it probably on the PS2 a couple more times. And then on the remasters, the 10.10.2 HD remaster, I've done 3 playthroughs on there, and the first 2 were I beat penance level of the game. And it's called Yojimbo. I mean, it wasn't like I was super skilled and did an hour-long fight or anything, but
pay to win.
I this playthrough specifically, when I'm taking more notes and really focusing in on the gameplay, I think it's probably my favorite turn-based battle system I've ever had.
So good.
It's phenomenal. It's the strategy, the way you move party members in and out, the way that every battle feels kind of important. They don't feel like you're getting spammed. I'm a big fan on all of it. So yes, I'm very big on 10. I even beat 10-2 one time. And
it sounds like not as big on 10-2, but you liked it.
I've tried multiple times to go back in. I'm like, nah. And the first time I played it, I think I used some sort of cheating device. I think I had like a Game Shark for my PS2 because I'm like, I just want to get to the end.
You seem like the target audience for a game that is like very pop idol, concert centric, and back massage minigame heavy. You know, like that just seems like you would fit the bill for the gamer that they're marketing to.
You know, the most perfect ending, the most tragic, heartbreaking tale of loss and heartbreak, and giving it all to save the ones you love. Let's undermine it with like 3 pop stars dancing around and everyone's back to life. And major spoiler warnings for FF10-3, all of those sequel novella bullshit, which are canon. Sin does come back. It's unfortunate.
What?
Somehow Sin has returned. Yeah, but that's a long ways from now. But yeah, so me personally, I'm very hot on it. Tyler, you might have the least experience.
I definitely do. I've played through the game one time, and that was like 2 months ago, something like that.
Yeah.
It was recent, but it was my first Final Fantasy game ever. My uncle lived in Arkansas, and I lived in Wisconsin, and we used to go visit my grandparents, and he had a PlayStation 2, and he had Final Fantasy X. And it was the first time I played a game that wasn't Madden or Grand Theft Auto probably in my life.
Yeah.
So it definitely opened up my world to a whole different level of gaming.
It broke the mold for a lot of people. I had one buddy who was the exact same way, Blake, and he was like, hey, man, I don't know how to play this game, but the music is so good.
Yeah.
He was just like that B-Sade Island song when you're first exploring with Waka. Man, the soundtrack is great. But yeah, Blake was like, how does RPGs work?
I remember my uncle coming in to see what I was up to because I would play in his bedroom. And then he came in, he's like, let me see your sphere grid. And I was like,
oh,
what? And he's like, pull up your sphere grid. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because I'm like 11 at this time, 12 maybe. And he's like, you haven't been leveling up? Like, you got all these, you level up. And I'm like, this looks like gibberish. What do you mean? I can't do that.
Which way do I go? Oh, the only way.
Yeah. And then as an adult beating this game, yes, there are parts of it that are a little cringy now and a little dated. But as a kid, this was the most romantic, heartfelt adult thing that I had ever experienced. And I had beaten Grand Theft Auto 3 like 6 times.
You're saying this is more romantic than Grand Theft Auto 3?
More romantic than getting health by banging hookers outside Luigi's Club. Yes, by far.
Wow, you and I have a different concept of romance, perhaps.
I feel like I got all 3 food groups of video games that exist though pretty early on, like GTA, Madden, and Final Fantasy. Like that's it. That's all there is. So
that's all the food groups you need.
Nothing else is any good.
Dude, I can't imagine FF10 being your like first RPG though.
Oh,
like,
it was.
You think about it, like I was really lucky growing up. My first RPG was Super Mario RPG. That is literally baby's first RPG. And even that was confusing for me. Like, wait, I'm not just running around and jumping on shit. What is happening here? Like, no. Oh, I have to I select actions and and I barely got through that. I can't imagine FF10, like you say, looking at the sphere grid and being like, what in the crap is this?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I was most excited to play Blitzball because I played so much sports games growing up. Like I had March Madness back when that was a thing, college football, hockey. I had every sport. I would just, whenever it was season, I would play that year's game. And then this one kind of has sports kind of in it. And at one point I get to play Blitzball. I was just waiting to get to that point the entire game. Now as an adult who likes games now, I got to the Blitzball part again and was like, this is like being waterboarded.
I can't wait to get to the Blitzball section.
They dupe you, right? They're like, hey, this is actually like the facade of a sports game, but it's really just math. Like, do some math.
Yes, it really is.
And it's got that math that I find frustrating with video games because I see the number 13 as a block and I expect a 13 block, but there's also like that random like variable math that happens.
Yup.
And I'm a math guy, so when I like at least explain to me, well, and they do, but as a kid, I didn't understand that like it could vary.
That can cut in half and yada yada. It's between these ranges.
Yeah. I think that's like when you guys were doing FF9, like I think that's a reason why a lot of people are not super high on Tetramaster, because the math works in the same way, right? Where if you have an attacking card that has a 3 and you duel with a card that has a defense of 0, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win 100% of the time. And then Blitzball's math kind of works in a similar-ish way. And so I think when you're a kid, like it's really hard to understand. Like I know greater than and less than, and I'm like, I don't know about this inequality here.
I mean, it's like calculus doing Blitzball.
As a 30-year-old, as a 30-year-old dude who graduated from college with a bachelor's degree, the math and Blitzball, those numbers might as well just be Albed. I'm not reading them. I'm not understanding them.
It's all Albed to me.
Just try to home run every time. Just run to the end zone every time and just pray the numbers work out.
I got a strategy. It's called give Titus the ball and do a Jack shot. That is a strategy.
Yeah. It honestly, it's a pretty good strat.
Yeah, I'll carry you as long as you need.
My years of FIFA have trained me to just be as close as possible to the goal before I shoot.
And you two both have extensive experience with 10.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever played the HD version. In my like adulthood, I've kind of gotten into like the trophy culture. I like getting trophies. I'm my PSN.
Hell yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'll do the PS4 version. I bought, and it's funny, I bought it actually like when it released. It came with this. It came with a really pretty calendar for the year 2015 with all of these like postcard arts. I didn't even realize I had this. But I literally got it when it released and never fucking opened it.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've all got shelves of that shit.
Well, it's
right?
like it's happened to me twice now where like they've released the 10 HD and then they released the 9 HD. And I get them both thinking, oh, these are going to be like an hour shorter. I'll speedrun these. And then I just fucking don't. Like, I end up just doing the original one anyway. Mm-hmm. And so, I finally just played it on the HD version for the first time. And I like that they had like the option to toggle between the original soundtrack and the like modern soundtrack if you wanted to like, kind of get a little bit of both. And I kind of liked that you could change the camera angle and stuff on the sphere grid. Like, there were definitely some things on it that I was like, okay, I'm feeling this. It was good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you feel like it's? Because you were asking, what's our experience? I've never played the PS2 version. I did when I was a child at like a game store. I'm pretty sure I played the first like hour. My mom must have dropped me off for a long time. But other than that, like I really didn't play it till this last year and a half or whatever. Played the PS4 version. How do you think it stacks up to the original Muttski? They did a good job?
I think that it's like one of those games that I think is actually fairly conducive of just upscaling the graphics more or less and just calling it a day. And I do think because it was a PS2 game and not a PS1 game, that of the like remasters of that era, I think it is easily the one that the upscaling is like the least jarring. Like I think it's the one with like the graphic update looks the best. Whereas like on 9, like some of the models look like they're kind of out of place on the condensed backgrounds. Like I think that some of the other ones don't quite look as nice. And playing the 10, I was like, I think this actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, actually, with the HD remaster, character models, a lot of them were completely remade. And there's a lot of people that'll say the main characters, like Titus and Yuna's faces are a little softer and more emotive in the PS2 version versus like a Botoxed out, like super smooth HD. And the FMV cutscenes are cropped to widescreen because you can everything else could be widescreen. You just have the game, but the cutscenes they didn't want to go back in and do.
That makes sense.
Like remake them.
Yeah.
So there's a number of cutscenes on the HD one where it's just like a close up of Arin's chest, and I'm there for that. I'm fine with that. But I'm like, I feel like this is someone got a haircut somewhere because this is very much just Lulu's cleavage. It's not being shy about it.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, some people actually don't have great feelings about the HD remaster. That's been the only way that I've really played it since the PS2. Like, I haven't gone back ever.
I haven't played the original PlayStation 2 one since I was in high school. And honestly, I couldn't even tell you what it like. I don't really remember what it looked like, so I couldn't make a comparison. But I do think the HD Final Fantasy X on the PlayStation 4 actually looked pretty nice. Mm-hmm. Like, it's always scary when you go back to those PlayStation 2 games that you have really fond memories of, and then they're like super fucking clunky and like not nearly as good as you remember. That was pleasantly surprised with this one.
I love NPCs that, we don't have time to make you pretty. Like, there is just the guy with the worst face ever in like a close up for a few shots. Oh, sorry, Maester Kinnock, we didn't like you that much.
You're not that crucial to the plot. I'm sorry.
You have reminded me of one thing that I did notice playing this for the first time. Because I would like actually go around and talk to NPCs, and like in this game, like I think it's one of like at some point like FF7 or I guess when they started doing 3D models, like, you know, when you would talk to a character and that the NPC would turn on the axis to like face you, right? Like rather than just having a 90-degree angle turn on a 2D game. And like, so when I would talk to some of these NPCs, I would be kind of like in front of them and the camera would be, you know, the NPC would be between the camera and my character. And they would turn. And I started to notice, I did not realize how many people in this game just have like full ass cheek out all the time.
Oh, yeah.
No one should be allowed to dress themselves in that world.
Like, because on the PS2 version, it for sure looks like pants. Like, it looks like they just have like brown pants on, and that there's like a flap that's like part of their shirt. But I have learned that is like actually their covering, and it was just like full ass cheek, and I was just like, huh. Not know.
Assless pants are very popular in Spira. It's weirder
apparently.
to have your butt cheeks covered.
Yeah, it's disrespectful.
Hi, we're crusaders fighting sin. Our arms have nice big armor. Oh, we're gonna have just bra and panties. Besides that, the entire game.
We got to protect them shoulders.
Yeah, man. Tetsuya Nomura, he's like, hold my beer. We're gonna go off the deep end this time.
Yeah, I mean,
he was testing his limits for sure.
Between the ass cheeks and Lulu's constant cleavage, I didn't realize how horny this game was, and I think I probably would have remembered that.
Oh yeah, I mean, as a kid, I remember like, dude, which one do I want to be my girlfriend?
Yeah, this is like a life or death decision.
It's a most important decision.
Yeah,
and as an older man, it's definitely Lulu, but.
But you're cultured enough, yes.
I'm cultured now. The blacker the clothing, the better is generally how I feel. But yeah, let's get into some of the behind-the-scenes stuff before we jump into the game. Development began in 1999. Hironobu Sakaguchi was occupied with FF9 when this started, and he was starting the production of a little movie called The Spirits Within. Yoshinori Kitase was the director of 7 and 8, so he became the producer of this game. He directed 6, 7, 8, Chrono Trigger, co-produced a ton of Kingdom Hearts, producer of both Remake and Rebirth. Kitase, one of the big names in Final Fantasy X. If it's a good one, had his hands in it probably. Budget of $32 million, about $57 million today, with a team of more than 100 people. Much of the 2-year development time was just trying to figure out how to utilize the PS2 system. There were a lot of things that they didn't have a chance to properly implement. They did want to do a world map. They wanted more mini games, but they unfortunately didn't have the time. And so started back in 1999. Story by Kazushige Nojima, head scriptwriter. He does most of the stories, 7 and 8. I don't know which other ones he's all done, but he's also responsible for the deep end stuff of like Dirge of Cerberus. before Crisis Advent Children. He likes the video games. They're so good. And then the extended world just really gets out there. I don't know if you guys do any extended like FF10 or like any of the novellas for the other games.
I haven't.
I have not personally touched any of them, no.
Yeah.
I feel like I have tried to stay on the main line because you start rearing off on Final Fantasy. It's a little weird.
Man, I mean, Tidus canonically, when he dies, he goes to a mobile game. Like, that's just canon.
That's called Purgatory.
That's purgatory. Yeah. Oh no, I'm on a mobile game.
Listen. All right. When this game came out and I finished it for the first time and he disappeared, I knew in 20 years to bring him back, microtransactions were the answer. Like, there was never a shred of doubt in my mind.
Yeah, more powerful than a Phoenix Down. All it takes is a few microtransactions, and I am alive again.
That's why you can't save Aerith in FF7. Is that we weren't quite there yet? You know?
Yeah.
They didn't have the foresight to realize that it was pay.
Oh my God, we're about to save her in Rebirth with microtransactions. Shit.
Got to get the Save Aerith DLC, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
What is a life worth to you? $5.99.
Yes, we mentioned Tetsuya Nomura did the character design. He was less involved in the story than some people think. Mostly, he's like, give this man some Lederhosen and an Ellen DeGeneres haircut, and we're just gonna wipe our hands and walk away. Also, though, I mean, all jokes aside, Auron is one of the most badass characters I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a lot of really great character design, but also just some outlandish and garish stuff in this.
I spent an entire day with my arm in my jacket like him, and my parents were like, the fuck are you doing? And I was like, you wouldn't get it.
You wouldn't get it.
Was your first experience with Auron playing Kingdom Hearts?
Oh, yeah.
Did you think he was fucking cool? Like, were you like, this guy fucking rules?
Yeah, this guy, dude, he's the absolute coolest character in Kingdom Hearts 2. Because Hades is like, all right, let me bring this guy back from the dead. And, Auron pops, I forgot, I'm going to not do the line justice. But he's like, I am the ruler of the underworld. Now I see why no one wants to die. And in Kingdom Hearts, that's the most badass fucking line you're going to ever hear, I swear to God. I was like, Auron is so cool. I'm part of a generation of a lot of Final Fantasy characters. First time I saw Squall, he was in Kingdom Hearts. His name was Leon.
So you thought he was Leon for some amount of time.
For so long, I was like, his name's Leon. That's his name. Yeah. First time seeing Cloud, his Kingdom Hearts 1 design, which is badass.
Yeah, they actually, all three of those characters, they actually do a pretty good job with. I just thought, like, I had played Kingdom Hearts 2 like way after it had been out. Like, I think that like Kingdom Hearts 3 and a ton of the other games were already out when I had finally played Kingdom Hearts 2. And I just remember being like, I thought that the way they integrated Auron was like incredibly apt. Like, it was just like a really strong way to use Auron's like character arc from Final Fantasy X and then kind of embed it into the like Hercules Kingdom Hearts lore. I just thought I was just wondering if that was the first time you'd ever seen Auron.
Yeah, it's like such an underrated part of like Kingdom Hearts, like early Kingdom Hearts. Of course, Kingdom Hearts 3, they're like, screw it. We're not going to have any more Final Fantasy
microtransactions, DLC.
That's all it is. But like, yeah, I 100% agree. Like, because for the most part, I know this is not a Kingdom Hearts episode we're talking about, but like, it can fall into just like, it just feels like super watered down versions of the Disney movies that we watched as kids, yada yada. But like you said, that implementation of Auron, now playing FF10 last year, I was like, wow, they actually did a really good job of seeing how these could connect together. I was very impressive in retrospect, not being an FF10 head. But yes, back to the original point. Auron,
I wasn't trying to like derail the conversation, but I was just like, I feel like this is a time that I could ask.
Trust me, I've been on enough of these. They love the derailings. It's great.
The derailings are good.
Oh no, listen. I listened to a couple episodes, and I've been sitting on something that I actually am not sure if it's a thing or if this was just a one-time thing. But I'm just wait. All right, it's up here.
Right? I like the tease. And we're going to talk about the hairdressers in Spira for a while when we get to Waka as well. There is time for derailing. Originally, the working script was called 17, the number, 7 space teen, the words.
So it was 1717.
Was the working title.
It's like Macaulay Culkin.
That's what they were like referring to it as. Yeah, Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah,
Macaulay Culkin. Yeah.
The hero traveled the world seeking a cure for a pandemic that killed people when they reached the age of 17. Yuna would have been a Red Cross-like nurse, and you would learn your treatment was actually causing the people's deaths in the game.
Getting their spirits to move on. What the hell?
Yeah. Death was a recurring motif. Tetsuya Nomura identified the South Pacific, Thailand, and Japan as influences on the cultural and geographic design of Spira. It's very much an island game.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Titus, this is a fun fact. Titus was originally going to be a plumber.
Ow! Our second great plumber in gaming almost happened.
Yeah, we were so close. And Luigi's just super mad that you said the second grade.
I feel like they were I feel like they sat Nomura down. They're like, bro, listen, you remember that Spirits Within debacle? We need to change some of this shit, bro.
You can have Lulu's belts or the plumber. You can't have both of these things.
Yeah. You take your pick.
Talk about a rags to riches story too. Like Titus goes from plumber to like LeBron James, essentially.
Yeah, he's literally Messi. Right, yeah.
I don't want to say
first off, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but he says he's LeBron James, but then whenever we get to Spira, he's like kind of like insanely below average.
Yeah. His stats.
Well, it was a different time. You know, you take the football players from the 50s, try and have them play today. They don't have the steroids.
Yeah, that's for sure what it is. That's gotta be.
They're all concussed and drunk.
That's the way to think of it. Yeah.
Originally a plumber, that would connect with the underwater elements of the game, but they instead opted for star athlete, I guess.
I don't know how we got there, but all right, it works.
He would have the attitude of a delinquent, it was said as well. And Nomura said some of the plumber elements remain in his costume design. And I'm like, which ones, man? Like, what are we talking about here?
I know several plumbers. That wear pants.
I gotta see what he's wearing.
You just got to cut off like half of one of your pant legs, and then you're basically a plumber.
I guess so. Yeah. Maybe the yellow boots he's wearing or something, or like a little bit. I'm trying to see in there.
Well, he's got a water sword.
Well, that's not from his original story, though. That's Waka's brother's sword.
But the little net thing on his sleeve, it could be a basketball net, or it could be like a drain net.
If there was like all of a sudden a plunger that I never noticed, then I would give it credence.
Right. Oh, I never noticed he's got a tattoo of a plunger on him. All right, there it is.
He was originally going to be an unsent in the game, but after the Sixth Sense came out, they're like, we shouldn't have him be unsent like every other character in the game.
Like, son of a bitch. They stole our idea.
I'm just picturing Titus like trying to like plunge a toilet that's clogged, and his dad just walking up and being like, you can't do it, kid. And he's just like going in on this toilet. Dude, I feel like there's so many layers to him being a plumber that I think would actually make this game like one of the greatest comedies of all time.
The fact that plot would have been eerily close to the Mario Brothers movie, a plumber gets sucked into an alternate dimension world.
Right.
I wish. One of the
now,
weird what ifs.
Y'all lost me there for a second, but now I wish this had been the plot. God damn.
Well, and then he arrives and he's like, oh no, I'm a star blitzball player for sure. And that'd be funny because he had to just pretend that he knew what he was doing the whole time, but he's just a plumber.
And they're like, hey man, you're not really good at this whole blitzball thing. And then he's like, well, that was 1,000 years ago and I'm really rusty.
We have different rules where I'm from.
I came into contact with Sin's toxin and it also depletes your blitzball ability. I bet you didn't know that.
Yeah, I have issues, man. Go easy on me.
Final Fantasy X, the Zack Snyder cut. I want it.
I'm there for it. First Final Fantasy game with fully three-dimensional areas. First to feature voice acting to mostly good outcomes, I would say.
You know how disappointed I was when I was like, wait, it's Final Fantasy X? They're like, no, it's 10. And I was like, so there's 9 more of these baller-ass video games that look and sound exactly like this that I'm going to get to enjoy? And then my uncle's like, nah,
He's like, just let's work on the sphere grid first, there, buddy.
They're very 2D.
Yeah.
One of the common criticisms I'll hear from people about the voice acting isn't like necessarily that they think the voice acting is inherently like bad or that the voice actors were like poor choices, but like people will often find like it can be a little bit jarring that the English voice acting lines don't at all match up with the lip movements of the characters, and it's because they designed them all for the Japanese voice actors, and then when they recorded them, they just basically like edited the script for the English lines so that they could try to fit the lip movements that they had already designed as closely as possible, which is why there will be some lines where like they'll say like there's one line where Waka's like, even in death, yeah, because there's like kind of like a weird mouth pause, and so they kind of had to like, yeah, and so like a lot of people find that a little jarring, but I think if you like understand that was like a limitation, like it would have been a massive amount of work to redo all of the mouth movements for, you know, localization, and so I think they actually did like a pretty good job of making it work like under those conditions. So I find the voice acting really impressive for 2000. You know?
Yeah, I'm in that boat that like after Metal Gear Solid in 1998 and its voice performances, I thought this was the next real step up in voice acting quality in video games. Like 2001, how did they do this anyways?
No, it was the Wild West back then, and you know now they can just match lip movements for the characters for whatever language they're speaking, and the way that the game engine was triggering sound files was tied into the same system used to trigger action on the screen. So if a sound file went overboard even half a second, it could throw off the entire scene and crash the game. So that was another limitation that they had to work with. They couldn't like say things longer. They had to kind of keep the files the same length. And trying to match up the audio. Sometimes the sound editors would digitally speed up or slow down the clips to fill the speaking time. And the fact that I couldn't really notice that, I think, is that's credit.
It's one of those things that, like, until you hear them a lot of times, and, like, once you notice it on one line once, you will hear it for fucking ever.
But even more difficult, they didn't have the final cinematics to match the lips to. They had to listen to the Japanese audio and try and match the cadence to that, not seeing the cutscenes at all. Fucking
that I did
insane.
not know, but that's impressive, honestly. That's a tall task.
Yeah, as a former actor, like, I didn't do voice acting or anything, that sounds a little toxic. That sounds awful as an actor. Like, none of, like, your time spent is actually be like, all right, what is my character? What are they experiencing right now? What are they trying to do to other characters and all this stuff? Not like, shit, all right, what is the cadence of this other language to, like, sort of piece this all together? That, kudos to the voice actors for, like, doing it at all.
Especially because a lot of things don't have like a one-to-one translation in even how like people emote language, you know, across languages. And so I feel like even just that notion would be really difficult to make work.
Yeah. Yeah. The scripting, the voice acting. Yeah, it's tough.
The cutscene of Tidus and Yuna kissing was developed by Visual Works, a subsidiary. Many animators weren't experienced with romance scenes. So the animators sought younger staff as well as female members, and they were all very unimpressed with their concept of a romance scene, and they had to change most of it around because the ladies are like, this is not romantic.
That is the most video game nerd thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Yeah, we had a bunch of nerdy developers, and they had to try to make a believable romance scene, and nobody fucking knew how to do it. Like
I don't know what this looks like. I'm sorry.
They just sat down the staff and they're like, okay, well, thanks for your help on the romance scene, but while we got you here, can you explain exactly where the clitoris is?
While we're here.
That would save me a lot of time.
I remember, again, I didn't play this as a kid, but like I had friends on the playground who were like, yeah, and then all of a sudden there's a makeout scene. And I was like, what? They're like, no, there's... Like, they kiss and everything. And as someone who played 9 and I knew of 7 and 8, there were love interests and love stories in those games, but they really never had, like, a scene dedicated to even a kiss or anything in those games. So hearing FF10, like, went for it there, I went, oh, does it look dumb as shit? I wondered genuinely as a kid. Finally seeing as an adult, they did good.
Are you saying taking your love interest, forcing her underwater, and spinning her around a bunch isn't romantic? Like that, I just love that Titus takes her underwater for a long makeout scene. I'm like, she can't breathe underwater, dude. This has been talked about in the lore. Take Waka down there and have some fun. But
hey, listen. Final Fantasy set the bar for romance scenes really high when they did Final Fantasy VI, and they show a scene that demonstrates how Terra was conceived and born, in which they have a human woman and a summon dance around in the stars, and then the two stars touch each other, and the baby is born. So, like, I feel like this is okay. I'm okay with this.
They've been trailblazers for a while in the world of romance.
Now, I mean, the enlightened also know when Tifa and Cloud went to bed in the chocobo spot on the airship, I know what was going down.
Oh, yeah.
I can read between the lines.
You don't go out to the hay pile just to go have a roll-ins of hay.
Well, does Tifa like roll over and be like, "You can call me Aerith if you want." Like,
that's why Cloud doesn't talk. He knows he's going to say it wrong if he talks too much.
just keep my mouth shut.
Aerith, shit.
They originally wanted to have play online involved in this game as well, but after the tragedy of FF9, they decided not to, thankfully. The battle art director, Shintaro Takai, wanted enemies to be visible on the field with seamless transitions into battles. The PS2 was not ready for that yet. Also they wanted characters to move during enemy encounters. They would move around instead of just have their spot and, move forward.
Interesting.
And the sphere grid was created to give players an interactive means of increasing character attributes such that they will be able to observe the development.
Oh, so good.
I must say, this might be one of my favorite soundtracks of any Final Fantasy game.
Hell yeah.
In gaming history, it's so good. Every track is a banger, whether it's the battle themes, the town themes, a character theme.
How about Otherworld?
Yeah, it's a banger. A little gacked. Hell yeah.
Not gacked, actually.
Wait, no. I think
You're thinking of the character from
I'm trying to think. Gacked does a song in like
Crisis
Dirge
Core.
of Cerberus or something, or maybe it's Crisis Core.
He's a character in Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus, but I think he has a song. They brought in a Christian metal vocalist to do that song for Otherworld, actually.
They brought in Aaron Gillespie from Underoath.
I wish.
As the only Christian.
They brought in
vocalist
Scott
I could
Stapp
think
of Creed.
Oh my god.
He's like, all right, now that was the Final Fantasy song. Now here's Boy Brush in Red.
Composed by Nobuo Uematsu, the GOAT, again. So essentially, there's like a rule. If there's a song that's got a catchy melody, that means Uematsu did it, but it was also composed by Masashi Hamauzu and Junya Nakano. Now, there's a lot of just super atmospheric, like kind of setting the scene more than giving you like a song, like a melody that you can like hum to yourself. They just have like one that's just like the sounds of wind changing, and there's a guy playing saxophone in the background. I'm like, who the fuck is this? I love that as much as Uematsu. Some of those just like weird ass atmospheric music. I'm there for it. Plus, you also have Nobuo doing like those super memorable like Spira themes and Suteki Dane. But I just like that there's some mix up. I'm a huge fan of the music in this game.
Yep. That's one of the first things I notice with just about every game that I really enjoy is that the soundtrack is usually really good. It's like, I don't know, it kind of sets the plate for me. Because I've said that about all of my favorite games lately. This one kind of reminded me of how quickly I identified that like the Hades soundtrack, which would go on to be one of my favorite games, was just an absolute banger.
Yeah. You find good music that can really like drive the action of whether it's gameplay or just an important, scene in a video game or anything. That's where my nostalgia buttons in my brain go off the most. It's thinking like, for me till the day I die, I'm always going to remember, Zidane and You Are Not Alone from, near the end of Final Fantasy IX. It's as soon as that track landed, that did it. I will forever remember first having, Titus, whatever, wash up on the shore of Besaid, and that endlessly peaceful town theme coming into my head right there is so good. Is so good.
And Seymour walks on screen in the most ominous harp you've ever heard. I'm like, it's a bad guy.
Dude, they really want you to know who the bad guy is, like, immediately.
Right. He kind of look like Sephiroth, don't he?
And like they're not even like, this is the bait, guys. Take the bait. It's like, no, this is the fucking bad guy.
Yeah, there was zero doubt with that deep V-cut robe that he's wearing.
With his spiky hair and his coke nail.
I like when they show little Seymour and he's got the same stupid hair but a smaller version of it.
Isn't he wearing a hat for the wedding? Is he wearing a little hat?
He has like a little thing on. Yeah, he has like a little.
He takes his little horns and he ties them back. Oh, it's so wild.
When did something about Mary come out?
After Waka.
Okay. Who came first?
Something
Walker?
About Mary feels 1990.
It's like late 90s. Yeah, I know this big.
So Waka was inspired by something about.
That's what I'm thinking. Lots of hair gel was used in the making of this game.
Do you just imagine Waka like on every break, just combing his hair, just like okay, perfect.
I just no. He's just like, he has to psych himself up to be a good person. He's just sitting there combing his hair for an hour. He's just like, fuck the Abed and Machina. That shit's so bad.
That shit's so bad.
I'm never buying a hair dryer. That's against my religion. Unless it's for a blitzball arena, everyone agrees blitzball is fine. We're not going to question that technology. This game was a critical and commercial success, shipped over 8.5 million units on the PlayStation 2. First PS2 game to reach 2 million and 4 million sold copies. Only one major naysayer, Edge Magazine, described the dialogue as nauseating, particularly Titus. Everybody else was super hot in the game. I echo some of those sentiments, but I'm okay with Titus. I would be fine without him.
Well, and now knowing what I know about the dialogue and how they were recording it and trying to make the English version, like, it's a Japanese game. It probably is natively better in Japanese. And like you said, there's not always a one-to-one translation to what they are saying in Japanese versus what you got to say in English.
Yeah, like they had to add a lot of yaws to Waka to like space out his dialogue,
which accidentally almost made him racist.
Well, I think it was him being racist that made him racist.
Yeah.
It was intentional.
There's a lot going on with Waka.
Yo, I believe in my religion, yeah. I'm going to throw a blitzball at my God, yeah. It's like, whoa. Waka, you are the most likable guy because you're John DiMaggio, but you are pushing a lot of buttons right now, dude.
Listen, he got by in my playthrough by, you've got this, you're fine. This is the beauty of video games, right? You're fighting a god. You're fighting this thing that's apocalyptic, destroying everything. And I'm going to take him down with a fucking beach ball. Because he was my big attacker. He got that fat sphere grid. Him throwing that ball for like 9999 every time. It was so good. It was so good.
Version differences. The Japanese game released with a bonus disc featuring interviews, storyboards, and trailers. Oh. The international version released in January of 2002, introducing the Dark Aeons penance, the Eternal Calm, which was a 14-minute video leading to 10-2, and some other minor things like Yojimbo's motivation formula and some characters' HPs were moved around. The HD remaster came in December of 2012 for the 10-year anniversary. We went over some of those changes. The remaster then came to PS4 May 2015. The Windows version does have autosave, 5 game boosters, skip FMVs, and 4K support. As a console player, that sounds nice.
Did they always do the behind-the-scenes interviews and shit for Final Fantasy games, or was that fairly new for 10?
I don't know.
I think this was the first one because the PS2 was when they started putting the games on DVD discs, and I think that they just are more conducive. There's way more space, and I think just they probably play media like that, I guess, a little bit better, more likely. I'm sure those things exist, but I have most of the versions of 7, 8, and 9 that exist, and I don't think the closest thing to like bonus content is that the 7 International JP version comes with a disc that has like a guide for like, it's called the Perfect Game Guide, and it's pretty imperfect, but it does exist.
It gets across the finish line. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like Lunar the Silver Star story for the PS1 had a bonus disc with some making of, which was fascinating to me as a kid. But no, I don't know for Final Fantasies until this game where I could be like, yo, I thought Lulu looked different than that.
It just it kind of further makes me think that they really knew they were onto something with the making of this game.
Yeah.
I mean, to go through all of that trouble of recording all of that and then shipping it out with the game, like if that game bombs, it's like you just made a documentary of your shit sandwich.
I mean, I want a no-clip documentary of the Gollum game. I would love to watch.
That'd be so good.
How the fuck did this happen, man?
That's been moving in and out of my cart so much over these Black Friday sales because it's $10 and I love bad games, and I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
I think I'm gonna give copies of that to all of my loved ones for Christmas this year.
Secret Santa. It's just 14 copies of Gollum.
I love it.
Be like, you guys know what's fucking awesome? This game here. Enjoy this. You're gonna love it.
Hey, you like Lord
you
of the
big
Rings,
Lord
right?
of the Rings fan? Oh my god, you're gonna love this.
Exploration for this game, third-person perspective, mostly a fixed camera. Navigate the main character, interact with objects and people. No top-down perspective world map. Regions and their connections are mostly linear. Your first playthrough. You do receive an airship. Now let's talk about the battles, which were designed by Toshiro Tsushida. I mentioned before, I fucking love this battle system.
This is my jam. This is why I really had a problem jumping back into Final Fantasy with like 15 was the first one I'd played in a while. And they switched to the new combat system, and I was like, no. I want the turn-based. I want it back. I want it now. I don't like this. But 10 is fantastic.
Oh man, conditional turn-based battles. It pushes strategy so much, and it also makes support characters super relevant.
Yes.
Where like Tidus is this weird, like almost time mage. The fact that he has all of these abilities to delay or speed up attacks. That's something I didn't appreciate back then. But just the way that you can see, on that top right, you see who's coming up in what order. And, oh, man, I would just manipulate that to no end.
It was satisfying to look up and see what that turn order was going to be. And that, like, one of my favorite just any magic spell in any of these games has always been a haste or a slow. But you never felt the weight of that in older turn-based Final Fantasies that, like, would it net even gain you an extra turn anywhere? I love that at the core of all of this that makes the combat system so fun are those haste and slow spells. And making Tidus not just like the buff character as the main character, like, no, that is the primary thing that he governs on his part of the grid. And you can make you just look up there, I've got 4 turns with Waka coming up right now before the boss comes up. And knowing what that turn order is going to be, being able to, like you say, strategize ahead exactly how you want to handle everybody's turns. So cool.
Now, this was my first time doing the Expert Sphere Grid on the HD remaster.
Oh, yeah.
Have any of you done the Expert Sphere Grid?
I thought about it, and then I was like, I'm just going to do the normal one. So I did not do it. I actually don't even know what the difference is.
Yeah, I have not done it either, but what my chat explained to me, because I asked them, I was like, should I do the extra one or the other one? They were like, do the original one first. I guess the basic concept is instead of you got your big sphere grid map and everybody's off on their different corners, and in the center was Kamari, who is like your blue mage. You can kind of send in whatever direction you want. everybody starts in the middle. And so you can make everybody whatever you want to make Tidus a black mage, send him down the black mage path. It might not work that well, but you can do whatever you want with it.
That sounds really enticing.
Funny enough, the speedrun actually doesn't use the expert grid.
I mean, I can see why it's not the original version of the game, which just that alone makes me feel like icky about it. This is my first time doing it, and I loved it. I was expecting to be super against it. What I wound up doing, though, is to get Yuna and Lulu to be able to get the Lancet ability so they can just steal MP from enemies. Game breaking, game changer.
Yeah.
That was the most important thing. Otherwise, a few different characters got delay attack, and then, they all start in the middle, and then everyone that's around Auron, they would just jump over, grab 12 strength abilities, attributes, and just jump right back over. Essentially, if you were an attacker, just get down to Auron's a little bit. But once you start moving, they do kind of go down their different paths, but you can kind of jump between them pretty easily in the expert. And I also spent more time kind of going around to get everyone a few of the basic abilities first. And I wound up having not any of the strong stuff when I needed it.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have Kira when I needed it. I didn't have Fyra or any of the bigger abilities, which made the battles more difficult, which made them more fun. I actually wound up dying a few times, which generally doesn't happen in Final Fantasy games, but I kind of appreciated the bigger challenge. Having less of the stronger abilities I found to be pretty nice, actually. Yeah, all the characters start in the middle, essentially, is the difference, and you can, there's less nodes, so there's less stat upgrades, but unless you're a monster, completing a sphere grid doesn't make too big of a difference.
I got to the end of my playthrough. People were like, do you think you'll go finish the sphere grid? Which you practically do to fight any the Dark Aeons or anything. I zoomed that map out. I was like, God, no, are you kidding me? I thought they just meant everybody completes their chunk. No, everybody does the whole thing. I'm like, that must take years.
Maybe when they wrote that achievement, that's what they meant. And then the person who was implementing it is like, okay, they must complete the entire sphere grid. And those achievements are kind of mean, too, because it's not just get all of the nodes. You have to get max stats, and there has to be you have to add nodes. It's very cruel.
Yeah. In specific spots to get your luck upgrades and stuff like that. Yeah.
Before the sphere grid, though, they originally were considering a tattoo system where you would have an open grid.
Far Cry 3.
I've never played Far Cry 3, but you get tattoos in that game to get abilities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks kind of like the sphere grid, but you get tattoos and it works up the wrist, and you can see it because it's a first-person shooter. You can see your arm in your field of view. So as the game goes on, it's badass as fuck because your arm just fills up with tattoos, and by the end, you're just like a war machine.
Well, I mean,
that's sick.
I think tattoos look cool.
Yeah, I would have loved just Stay Awake tattooed under Titus's eyes like Post Malone.
He would maybe look cooler if he had some tattoos.
He's got a claymore on the side of his head.
No, he would get a neck tattoo. It just says "fuck my dad,"
Mama's boy.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. His mom does seem like a very sweet lady, in fairness. So there's,
all they had to do was just shave Tidus's head, and I think it would have gone a long way.
Give this guy a number 2.
Yeah,
right. Didn't like him looking like Ellen DeGeneres back in.
Man, that Meg Ryan.
It aged. Yeah, Meg Ryan. It aged better. I can understand because I remember a lot of people just thinking this game was weird back in 2002. But in 2020, this shit hits, dude. This is real good.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad I waited until I was an adult.
Yeah, originally you would place tattoos to boost stats and abilities. Seymour, Jecht, and Brother still have the original tattoos designed for their characters. Nobody else gets cool tattoos, though. And you would also acquire items and improve your characters through that system as well. We already know about the characters' standard grids. Tidus is going to be speedy. Auron is your beast. Auron gets so overpowered so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
I got to a point this playthrough where Auron was the only person. Like, everyone help Auron and just stay out of his way.
Yeah.
See,
Right,
that was
yeah.
Waka for me. Waka was just like, he can hit anything. He's fast. He usually appears pretty high in the order.
Yeah, I think I kind of took that approach. I was like, Auron is just default. Every node's like +4 attack. I gave like my big stuff, like the extra strength node, to Waka, so they would both hit hard. Yeah.
Yeah, Waka's legit.
And ranged attacks. I mean, the characters really do have defined roles. And when people want to argue about Final Fantasy games, they often argue about job systems and like kind of like the materia system in 7. Any character can wind up being anybody. But with the classic Sphere Grid, I do like the defined roles that the characters fall into. It makes everybody super important outside of Kamari.
Right. Kamari's your classic blue mage where they're really, really strong if you have a good plan for them.
I think the one thing that they like added to this combat that I think makes having kind of each character have a specific typecasted role really useful is that the fact that they added like the tap in, tap out system of your characters.
Yeah.
So it's not like you only have your party of 3 characters like all of the games that came before it. And so you do kind of have like the ability to have characters like I will usually lead with whichever characters have initiative on their weapon or equipment or have just the highest speed, because they're usually going to get the turns first, even if it's not the character I want to use, because they will outspeed the enemy and I can tap in who I actually want to use, who's slower. And so I think that like having kind of like the character roles makes that added layer of combat strategy a little bit more interesting. Just because you can use your entire party, so to speak, you know, which is cool.
It's got great flow. This is, someone could grab me, I think this was the first Final Fantasy where you could swap your main character out.
I think
it was always a limitation. Like Cloud's got to be in the party.
Yeah.
Zidane, Squall, they all got to be in the party. All of a sudden, no, Tidus can go on the bench if you want. I thought that was extremely cool.
I like it that they even go further in 12, where I'm like, oh, now it is just Balthier as the main character for the entire game.
He is the leading man.
Just the way you switch, your characters in and out, and it's so fast. You're not penalized for it. I love it so much.
Yeah, and that combined with everybody's pretty well thought out role actually made it feel like when I was strategizing and I did something good, that I was actually smart. Like, oh, I fucking nailed that, because the game just intuitively makes sense to you. And that is nice. Like after playing like Gotham Knights recently, where like nothing is really fucking explained and I'm just mashing a button, to actually have a game that has strategy and make you feel smart. I like that.
Another thing that the combat system does super, super well is that I am not a grinder in RPGs whatsoever. I'm like, whatever level I get, I'm going to go. Maybe it's like a byproduct of being a speedrunner, but I'm like, I think grinding is just not the most fun way for me to play a game, but there's a lot of people who are into that. I like that in this, there's the benefit of you don't just leave other characters behind. Like, I got to do a round with these 3, then I got to do a round of fights with these 3. It's no, as long as you swap them into a fight, they will get the same amount of experience towards upgrading their sphere system or whatever. It actually not only does it, okay, everybody gets experience now, it naturally pushes you as a player to get everybody into, especially all the boss fights, to say, okay, I gotta get Riku in here somehow, and think about how does she help me achieve defeating this boss that's on screen right now, so that she's leveling up, but also like just be more correct in the strategy department.
Yep. Riku must steal from everybody once before she is swapped out for Auron.
In my playthrough, I was trying to kill as many bosses as possible using spare change on the final turn and just throwing money at them.
With spare change, if the boss has less HP, does it require less gil?
It does 1 damage for every 10 gil you throw, and I would always just throw 69,690 because I'm a loser. But like,
Right, you got you. It's actually not like it's a strat in the speedrun, I'm pretty sure. Like, that's how they kill all the Aeons at the spoilers. At the end of the game.
Just throw money at them.
Chuck cash at them.
It's a good metaphor for how you deal with problems in life, you know? Just throw some fucking money at it. Yeah, right.
There's some money.
Make it hail.
But hey, I'm glad to hear that you guys like the battle system Final Fantasy X, because let me tell you, if you like Lord of the Rings, there's this game called Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, which is also for the PlayStation 2.
Oh, I know.
It's the same fucking thing, and it rules. It's literally this.
Really?
They basically just take the Final Fantasy X combat almost exactly, and they're like, "We're just gonna put a Lord of the Rings skin on it, baby." And it's
so
actually really
funny.
good. It's of the Tolkien licensed games. It's actually one that I quite enjoy.
Except you take the party and you replace them with like B versions of all of them. This is Eredaren, and this is Coromir, and
This is Mandalf.
and also they intersect. I love that, like, oh, and we were also there with the Balrog, and we fought with Gandalf on the bridge. I'm like, I didn't see that in the movies, but it's all movie licensed too, which is great.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they could only use things that were from the movie. Like it was kind of weird. They got the license to make a game based on the movie content, but not the book content. So if it wasn't specifically in one of the movies, it couldn't be in the game. And like you said, they basically just take the trio of Lord of the Rings, and they're like, let's just make Walmart versions of all of them, and like that's who you guys are.
Yeah.
Great value.
I've never heard anyone else bring up the Third Age. A pretty great game.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Such an oddity.
Lord of the Rings games in the PS2 era slapped pretty hard. Yeah, games like Two Towers.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Stuff.
The movie games are I quite enjoy them. They're like a good little hack and slash fun.
If it's a book license game, stay away.
And if it's Gollum, buy 2 copies.
Buy them for your loved ones and your hated ones. Buy them for everyone's.
Stocking stuffers this holiday season.
I'm gonna buy them. Just use them as coasters.
Every guest, you never explain it.
You left your game out. I know.
Whoa! Don't put your drink on my table. Take one of these.
Hold on.
I love that.
Throw the disc.
We went to a fundraising event for a buddy from EXPcast, old podcast named Stoy, at his house, and he bought like 50 copies of Anthem for like $3. And they were hidden all around his house, and you had to try and find a copy of Anthem for yourself before you left the party. So I have 2 copies of Anthem that are unopened, but
I have 2.
That's sick.
I felt so good when I finally found my copy. But yeah, like every couch cushion on top of the shelves.
And then somebody lost their keys, and I thought it was just an elaborate ruse to get everybody to start looking so that way they would find anthems. But no, guy actually lost his keys. I think he found them, though.
It was very sad.
They were inside a copy of Anthem.
One other aspect of the gameplay system before we jump into the story, I wanted to talk about armor customization, which is super powerful, potentially game-breaking, and I think a little half-baked. I originally didn't do much with it, but I feel like it's so close to being a very well-defined, fun aspect. What are your guys' thoughts on armor customization?
I basically, in my most recent playthrough, I don't think I customized a single piece of armor. I looked at it a few times, and then I was just like, nah. I went to the one cave where you can go get Yojimbo at, and I just grinded until I got an armor that had no encounter ability on it.
Yeah.
And then I just had that for whenever I wanted to revisit places but not have to be peppered with fights later on. And other than that though, I pretty much just took everything as it was through the playthrough. And if it had a good ability, I used it, and if it didn't, then it just sat there or I sold it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably another byproduct of being a speedrunner where we don't really look at the stats of armor and gear you put on. We're just yeah. What else no encounter? Oh, baby, sign me up. Or buff my attack or something, whatever it might be. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I did much with the armor either. It's funny because I'm such a gearhead when it comes to Final Fantasies. You come from FF9 where gear is everything. You got 5 slots putting all this shit on. I think FF10, I was so, probably like a lot of other people like you're alluding to, it's game breaking. We were so engulfed in just what the sphere grid was. It was hard to think about min-maxing anything else going on in that game, at least for me. I'm kind of like Muttski. I feel like I barely touched the armor, but I agree with you that I think you could destroy the balance of the game if you understood the upgrade system to its fullest.
I did a lot.
You did a lot. Okay.
I did a lot. Anytime there was an open slot on a piece of armor, I threw something in there.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to just waste these slots. Like, especially you get like the 3 and the 4. And then like the switch hitter with like 4 open slots. And I was just like HP for Waka.
Yeah.
It's like, he's invincible now.
Yeah, dude. I'd be rolling into battles. I'd have something on ore and it would be like piercing and then 3 blank slots. And I'd just be like, oh, fuck it. I guess it's piercing. I wanted to ask you, did you find like, if you were doing it like frequently, did you find that there was like an easier to afford ability that you used frequently?
It's a great question.
And that you would plug in? Like, is there like one that you found that you used a lot on like most of your armors that you're doing?
I think the problem is, so this recent playthrough, I wound up doing a lot of stealing because I would just, I'm trying to get everyone to use abilities. Yeah. And I had 3 characters with steal from my fucking around on this expert grid. So I wound up getting, I'd go through an area and I'd steal from a bomb, 100 times. And the problem is, there's so many abilities like, I'm going up against a boss that uses a lot of lightning spells. It's just expensive. Those abilities are all like rather expensive to get anything worth using. And I feel like if you could like move the abilities around after you purchase them, or like it's so close to being like this great system where if you want to go into the strategy and invest into, I know what's coming up, or I want to add HP plus 5% plus 10%. The problem is it's just not super viable because you don't have enough items to kind of afford the customization. Mm-hmm. But I would go in if I knew that I was going to fight, water enemies. That's why I would save all of my weapons that I ran into. So, usually you're going to have 10 different weapons, 20 weapons for every character just from fighting enemies. And I'm like, ooh, I got a water strike for Kamari. Going to hold on to that one. Then I'll switch that ability in. But I wanted there to be easier to be customized in the armor, and I feel like if it was a little bit like a materia system, it might have been better, but I feel like it was close. But when you get to the end of the game, you can make weapons and armor that are better than the best things you can find naturally. Better than the legendary weapons, you can like create just some monstrous custom pieces, which is
being great. Able to put like null anything on like Lulu or Yuna was just... That was almost game breaking, because then it was like for the fights with Seymour where he would hit you with like Blizzara and he'd hit all 3 characters. Like I would use Yuna to like protect everybody and just run through the list of null so all the elements are covered, but 2 of my people on the board would just naturally have resistance towards 1 or 2 different things.
Yeah.
Well, essentially though, confuse, poison, any status effect, either proof or ward, I would do a lot of that. And if I ran into an enemy that I knew dropped the items I needed to create, like confuse ward, stone ward, those are the ones you can afford without doing a lot of investment. Those are the abilities that I craved.
Yeah. Listen, man, you got to play one Final Fantasy and run into a Marlboro man before you're like, dog, if you can protect me from a status, because at some point in the late game, you're going to run into this thing. I ran into that in Final Fantasy VIII, my most recent playthrough like 2 months ago. I was like, kill it with fire, dude. Anything. All hands on deck.
You better have first strike.
Yes. All status effects. Because as a kid, I just want to make my numbers go up, right? Nah, dude, you got to protect against all that dumb shit.
let's talk a little bit about the cosmology quick before we jump into the story. Understand what this fucking world is. Set in the fantasy world of Spira, we talked about its influences. The far plane, heaven is a place on Earth. You can go visit it. But it's actually not your deceased loved ones. Fireflies are like the Force. They're midichlorians, life energy present in all living things. A physical expression of the spiritual forces of nature. When you go to the far plane, those are not your loved ones. It's the fireflies feeling your memories and just recreating an image.
They're like the answer for everything, by the way. If your question about Final Fantasy X begins with why and ends with any words, the answer is probably fireflies. Like,
great point, because this was fascinating when I read it. They can crystallize in the form of spheres, which can be used to record videos.
That's baller.
Oh, guys, out of fireflies, I need to go change the stock on my camera. Like, how does that fucking work?
It's so prevalent in like the lore of the game, to the point where like among like when we did at Final Fantasy X, we did an eight people. We kind of handed off and did a relay at an RPG Limit Break event, and like it got to the point we would just talk about fireflies even when it wasn't actually fireflies, just because everything normally is fireflies.
There's like an 80% chance you're right, though, right?
Waka's hair gel made with fireflies. All of it is fireflies all the way down.
That's how they breathe underwater.
Fireflies.
Okay, now it makes sense. That was my biggest question.
Apparently, though, you just practice enough and you can breathe underwater indefinitely.
Weird.
Even if people are punching you in the gut full force with no resistance because of the water that they're submerged in.
I mean, that might be why Titus has the Ellen DeGeneres cut, because he could have like the Kevin Costner gills from Waterworld under there, and we just never saw them.
Ooh, he's hiding them.
Oh, there it is.
Fireflies, though.
Fireflies.
Humans, since the creation of Spira, developed special abilities to harness the fireflies, known as magic. Magic is made through fireflies. Summoners can influence the fireflies to summon creatures. These creatures come from the Faith, with a Y. They're humans who had their souls sealed in statues. Their powers can then be deployed by summoners.
I'm following.
Fireflies.
I'm with you.
They create aeons, ultra-powerful magical creatures that are badass. Sometimes when you die, a summoner needs to do a special dance, and then your fireflies go to the far plane.
That's how it works.
They gotta be told to get the fuck out.
Pretty much nailed it.
What happened to Grandpa, Mom? Oh, he died. We got to get a dancer here quick. He's going to turn into a Marlboro.
Dude, Titus is gonna get a chest tattoo too that just says "People die, Yuna dances." Like, that's... people can hate on his dialogue. Listen, he explains shit really directly, and I appreciate it.
If you die naturally and accept your death, you naturally go to the far plane. If you suffer or die before you're ready, your life force will be left wandering the world. Filled with hatred and jealousy, these lingering spirits can become monsters. I think all of the fiends are just upset people who died in a weird way.
They're just pissed.
If a person is strongly attached to the world because of an intense emotion or an unkept promise, specifically, they can refuse death, in which case the fireflies recreate their body. I feel like this game has just a million. They do one like, oh, and they're not actually dead, and then they just like, all right, everyone's not dead.
Well, because they have to like. I think once they made the decision that there's going to be critical characters who are alive but totally not alive, they like had to have something to rationalize it, right? Like they can't just be like, oh yeah, Seymour's actually dead, but we're just not going to fucking give you anything, right? Oren's not supposed to be here. We're just going to fucking lay. Like I feel like they made the choice to do that. Yeah. And then had to decide this element of the Fireflies deal after the fact to make it make sense. Because like I think people are more than willing with Final Fantasy to like go down the road of suspension of disbelief pretty heavily.
Yeah, you got to.
But I feel like the life and death thing, like, you got to give me something, I guess. So at least even if it's not like the strongest explanation of how that's a deal, like at least they tried. So yeah, it's okay.
If you look, the Wikipedias will explain all of this shit. And I remember the first time learning that Seymour died one of the first times we fought him, and I was like, oh.
And then the Fireflies just 3D print him a new body, and he's back in the fight.
No one danced. I'm hanging around. Can't dance fast enough. I'm out.
John DiMaggio was coming off of Futurama, and he's like, listen, guys, we can make dead people alive for a very long time. Just put Seymour's head in a jar. Got it.
Also, I want to be the cat. Can I be the cat as well?
Is he the cat?
He's Kamari as well,
No way.
Yep.
Is he just everybody? Is this like a Nutty Professor
What a
thing?
nutty range
It's Nutty
John
Professor.
DiMaggio has, dude. Yeah.
Yo, I'm Yuna, yeah? My daddy was a summoner, yeah? Fucking wild. Before the game, I wrote a lot of outline. We're not going to do all of it. It's not a lot of it, dude, because I wanted to know. I wanted to know who Lenny was, and I wanted to know who these people were. But Spirit exists for 3 millennia, made up of 2 continents. Humans learn magic. Humans learn technology. Magic and technology coexist, but they start hating each other. The Bedols are the outbed, and they're a lower caste of society. They are forced to speak a different language and not intermingle with others, and even inflicted magic to make their eyes have spirals so they could be identified as Albed. Yeah, that's like some sketchy shit.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fucking heavy metal.
They're like, we want to be racist and we want to make it easy to do it too.
Right.
I want people to cross the street when they see me very quickly.
No, the Albed didn't do it to themselves. They had it done to them.
Oh, I thought they were like, yeah, that's me.
No, it's not like them representing. It's them being forced to represent.
Okay. I just had that was a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, you're on the other side of that now.
Yeah.
Over the centuries, a division developed between the 2 largest cities, Zanarkand, who believed in magic and spirituality, and Bavel dedicated itself to technology and machina. They create a very dangerous weapon, which becomes relevant in a sequel. They go to a war, summoners, things happen. Yu Yevon was, I could go into it. I don't know if it really matters much. He was a summoner. Zanarkand all sacrificed themselves to become a dream, make a dream Zanarkand out on the water. Yu Yevon became a bug. His daughter Yunalesca knows how to use the bug. It's like a lot.
You're doing a great job, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're nailing it.
All Square games like reach that point where like, all right, I'm following. What the fuck is going on? Okay, yeah. And it's usually whatever is centered around the final boss. Because, yeah, he a bug.
He's just a bug. Yeah, the Faith created a massive, indestructible creature that would serve as armor for the bug and charged with protecting the city and keeping it alive. This was Sin. Yu Yevon got absorbed into Sin. His consciousness was altered, so essentially he just becomes like his final will of destroy technology and civilizations to keep things, kind of bring it all down to an even level. Yunalesca and her husband, Zayon, man, sometimes I say these things and my eyes start rolling in the back of my head.
You need charts up.
Yeah, she ordered Bavel to honor Sin and abandon Machina. This all is like kind of what sets up the world we're in now. Machina bad because Sin is there because Yunalesca says so. And you can kill Sin, but it comes back very quickly. Like 10 years, which I totally misunderstood that my first few playthroughs. I thought that the calm lasted longer, but the fact that you are dying for a 10-year piece is not great.
Yeah. So like whenever you first meet Yuna and you get on the ship leaving Besaid, and she like mentions that she knew Jecht, and then she's like, yeah, he came here 10 years and 3 months ago, and kind of indicating that it has only been about 10 years between when Orin and Jecht went with Braska to defeat Sin to the present. So like that's kind of like your indicator that the calm is probably not a particularly long time, I guess.
No, every generation's gonna get it.
If the summoners have to die to create a calm for a decent period of time, I get it. I can understand more of the rationalization, like 10 years isn't long enough, but 10 years is a lot. But if you defeat Sin with the final Aeon, the little bug just grabs a new Aeon and makes new armor and grows into a new Sin. And I don't know if Sin looks the same every time. If he was to merge into Jex Sin, would it be this giant blitzball weirdo with a mullet? Like,
I hope he looks the same, because I have said this on stream a multitude of times. You ever like see any of the FMVs where like after Sin has finally like been exposed and you've seen his face and like the camera will like hard zoom in on his face? I think he's really kind of cute. Like I wish there was like I wish this Square Enix store had Sin plushies. Like I would get one. Like I just think he's like kind of a cute little, I don't know, little whale.
Yeah, Squishmallow.
Yeah, the only thing that makes him imposing is that obviously he's, apocalyptic Lavos style creature, but like he's massive. He's gigantormous. But you actually see him, you're like,
he's a cute little whale.
That's a plushie right there.
I do like the whenever they see him and they're like confronting him and you're on the airship and like you see like the technology, there's like a little cursor that's like zooming in on all different parts of him and it's just like, oh yeah, this is all pretty much fucking bad. Like
this Finn's bad, that Finn's bad.
Yeah, kind of. Like
we didn't go fight the undercarriage, but it's bad.
Like he's so big, it's like, why are we analyzing him? Like, yeah, he looks fucking bad. Like this is not a good look. But yeah, no, I like Sin.
You hit that fin with a beach ball, and it does 99.99 damage.
I'm sorry, God. Yeah. I'm gonna feel weird about this the rest of my life. I'm killing my religion. Yes, the entire system of the Yevon religion is predicated on a lie designed to subjugate people. Square Enix going hard on organized religion.
Theocratic fascism.
Big time. They changed it to FAYTH, so it's not attacking modern faith at all.
For sure. Surely that's definitely not at all what they were getting at.
What are we going to call the monster? Let's call it Sin.
That was a little on the nose, don't you think? Nah, it'd be fine.
They should have spelled Sin with a Y. If they spelled Sin with a Y, I think people would not have noticed.
Yeah, right.
I wish they'd have the balls to go all the way. Like, instead of summoning Shiva or Ifrit, you summon Jesus.
This is Jesus, yeah.
He just breaks a loaf of bread, and then like the storm happens or some shit. I don't know what we would do. Summons fish.
Right.
I'd be there for that. The sign of Yevon is actually an old Blitzball victory sign. Their little thing that they do with their hands. That's for Blitzball. And the Hymn of the Faith was a song sung by Xanarkand against Bavel, which the Hymn of the Faith does have lyrics. They're just garbage, like pray for you, Yevon, dream of the faith. Nothing too exciting.
But it sounds pretty.
It sounds great.
Yes.
It's the kind of thing you want to sing in a bathroom somewhere with a lot of echo, very loud.
Yeah, good acoustics.
And then millennia pass. There's some calms. There's some sins.
What is BG?
Before game.
That's
what my outline has. But we're going to have this be the end of the first episode, and then the next one we will cover the story of the game. Now that we talked about the systems, now we can talk about the hair for an hour. So we're gonna be done here, and then where could our listeners find more content from you, Muttski?
So I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Muttski. I've recently not really been doing a whole lot of Final Fantasy stuff, although that's most of what I stream. I've been playing all the Resident Evil games. I've never played them before, so I've been playing through all those games. Yeah.
Which one?
How are you
on?
enjoying them?
They're pretty fun. I've played some of the originals and some of the remakes, and I'm kind of in no particular order, so kind of been dipping my toes in.
You're not like
things.
Starting at one and then going through. Yeah.
So I've been enjoying them, and then not like a big thing or anything, but one of my friends from Twitch and we do a once a month podcast. It's called the Video Game Draft, where we bring people in and we pick a year and we do like a fantasy football style draft for video games.
That's so cool.
In that year, yeah, we have like, instead of like positions, we do like, you'll do like one action adventure, one RPG, One category is called Meta 75, which means it has to have scored a 75 or less on Metacritic. No fixed objectives, which are like set your puzzle box games with no beginning or middle or end or whatever, and like fighting style games. And it's just a lot of fun. So we do that like once a month. So been doing that. And just playing some games. Yeah. So Twitch, Muttski, you can find me there. I'll be there.
Fuck yeah. Spike?
God, I'm sorry. I know I can talk about myself, but that's cool. Do you have those archived anywhere?
Yeah, they're on Spotify and stuff. I'll send them to you. They're really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the episode description as well, because everyone should check that out.
Actually, I love analyzing, like going back. 1997. Okay, that was the GoldenEye year.
We do a couple of like other ones that aren't in the year specific. We did like a spooky draft for Halloween. We did the Final Fantasy soundtrack draft where we had different types of songs and you did drafts on. Yeah, I'll send them to you, Spike. I think you'll
like best
enjoy
airship, best chocobo.
Yeah, it was like kind of like that sort of deal. Yeah.
Oh God, I love that. I'm gonna absorb those.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Well, because like I said, it's like a fantasy draft. So once someone picks something, like it's gone, right? So you kind of have to like figure out. There's like a game within the game, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, you gotta have some backups ready.
Yeah.
As someone who loves fantasy drafts, like fantasy football and stuff, and loves video games and video game history and analyzing music and stuff, that is like, you made that for me. I don't know if you knew that or not, but y'all made that content for me.
Well, it's got me to try like a bunch of things that I for sure never would have played in my entire life. So it's cool to just like expose yourself to things. Like Toyota released a game called Yaris when they were trying to sell the Toyota Yaris, and it's this really shitty like driving sim. I never would have heard of it if it wasn't for this. So
phenomenal.
But yeah, and then I'm Spike Vegeta. You can follow me on twitch.tv/Spike Vegeta. I'm also on stuff like Twitter or Zitter or whatever the fuck it's called now.
We'll go with Zitter.
I like Zitter, dude. I started just last month a thing I've always wanted to do, SNES Mania. Amazing speedrunner, the Mexican runner, many years ago did a NES Mania where he played through every NES game that was released in the US. It was over 700 games. And now I have decided I'm going to finish all 718 US released Super Nintendo games.
That's amazing.
This will take many years. I just finished games 19 and 20 today as of this recording. I beat my second there's a lot of golf games actually, and super tennis. Over 20% of the library, fun fact, are sports games.
Or not fun
US.
fact.
So, yeah, as someone who didn't play sports games at all growing up, this is like, all right, a motherfucker, the golf games are so hard. I can't tell you how hard the golf games are, Jesus Christ. But yeah, it's a good time. So if you want to watch any and all Super Nintendo games, I'm going to be playing that for the next 5 years on stream. In addition to speedruns and stuff. I got into Super Mario RPG Remake, speedrunning and stuff. Yeah, I like to speedrun a bunch of different games. But yeah, follow me there. It's cool.
And thank you both so much for joining us for this episode. Big delight. And fuck yeah, it's fun talking about Final Fantasy X. I'm having a great time. And that's why we are going to come back for part 2, where we talk about what the fuck happens in the game. And we're going to talk about the cloisters of trials, and we're going to need more beer. But we're going to make it.
And we are Hair of the Dogcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Blue Sky, on Threads. We're on all the things. Just look up Hair of the Dogcast, or on Instagram, it's @HotDogcast. If you want to send us your favorite Blitzball players, you can send us an email at hairofthedogcast@gmail.com. Big thanks to our executive producers on Patreon, Ryan Christianek, Kip Kipper, Brian Ward, Jordan Hoff, Phil Wright, Philium Birkin, Cole Delgardno, and Bryant Ross. We appreciate your support. Now, part 2 of this episode is going to be available to Patreon members almost immediately. Otherwise, you'll be having to wait for quite a while. So if you want access to part 2 right away, check out patreon.com/hairofthedogcast. And there's a bunch of bonus episodes, and we have a great community on our Discord, and that's how you can join us there. There's free trials on Patreon as well, so make sure to check that out. Patreon.com/hairofthedogcast.
So we'll be right back for part 2. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.